Farah Diba Pahlavi has led two lives. One is the Empress of Persia, wife of the Shah. The second one spent in exile, including many years in seclusion in Paris. Who is Farah Diba Pahlavi? Farah Diba grew up as an only child in a family that was cosmopolitan, yet loyal to the royal family. Her grandfather was a Persian ambassador to Russia, and her father had studied in France. Her father died when Farah was 9 years old, bringing her happy childhood to an end. Her mother hid his death from her for several months, which proved traumatic. Farah tried to distract herself and put a lot of energy into sports. Her team won the Tehran championship 3 times in a row, and Farah was also Iranian high jump champion. She went to study in Paris, living on the International University campus with students from many other countries. Then it happened. Shah Riza visited France early in 1959, and the ambassador invited a group of Iranian students in his honor. Shah Riza promptly fell in love with the 21-year-old Farah.
When I got introduced to him, he asked me what I'm studying, and I said architecture. He was a little bit astonished because in those days there were not many women, girls in architecture. And I remember a member of my family, a lady, was also in that occasion, and he said the Shah looked at you when you left, when you left. And I remember I wrote to my mother how happy I was and proud to have seen His Majesty from close, and he had beautiful but sad eyes.
Their engagement was celebrated 6 months later in Golistan Palace in Tehran, 18 months after the Shah had divorced his second wife, Soraya, who was unable to have children.
His Majesty was sitting just next to me, and he told me I have been married twice and unfortunately it didn't work. And at the end he said, would you like to become my wife? Of course I said yes, with all my love. And he said, as a queen, you will have duties to perform. And as a child, I was raised to have duties and responsibilities, but I couldn't imagine the scale of what will happen.
The Shah wanted everything to happen quickly, and their fairy tale wedding took place in December 1959. All over the world, people took an interest. Will the young queen be able to give the Shah the heir he so wanted? 10 months later, Crown Prince Reza was born. The future of the Pehlevi dynasty was ensured, and the whole nation celebrated. In the 60s and 70s, Farah Diba became something of a style icon and a fashion role model for millions of women of her generation. Along with Liz Taylor and Jackie Kennedy, she was among the most photographed women in the world. At the end of May 1967, the royal couple visited West Germany. Leftist student groups demonstrated against the state visit. For them, the Shah was a dictator, a murderer, and a vassal of the United States. On the opposing side were Persian students who supported the Shah. The royal couple carried out their engagements unperturbed by the demonstrations. What did the Shah and his wife really feel about such incidents and the criticism they received in their own country? Did they just push it to the back of their minds? I don't think they lived in the bubble. The Shah wanted to turn Iran into a modern economy along the lines of the Western countries. For this reason, he opposed the nationalization of Persian oil. At least this is how his friends, the Americans and the Russians, were able to do it. The Americans portrayed him. The Shah had already started the process of wide-ranging political, economic, and social reforms at the beginning of the 60s. Farmers were being given more land and were learning to read and write. Iran was being dragged into the 20th century.
He saw himself as a revolutionary king. He saw himself as more than someone who was sitting on a throne. He saw himself as the agent of change. And he saw himself as the person who was best equipped to bring this change to Iran and really build on the progress and reforms of his father's era, the 1920s and 30s into the 40s.
It was the beginning of a new era, and the changes were being felt by everyone. The middle classes were also becoming better educated, and influenced by the Queen, the Shah improved rights for women. They were now able to get divorced. And from 1963 onwards, women in Iran were able to vote and to be elected to office. They also had access to all levels of education.
When His Majesty crowned me, he wanted to show to the nation that the importance he gave to women. And I never forget when he put the crown on my head, I had the feeling that he has crowned all the women of Iran.
Farah was now crowned Empress, a title that had never before been given to any woman in Iranian history.
Beside that, which is also important, I didn't expect, is that I was called regent. If my son had not reached the age of 20 and His Majesty had passed away before, I will become regent, and it was accepted by the parliament and the Senate.
The Empress did not have much time to devote to her own children. She was running an office with a full complement of staff, developing social programs for the general public, founding hospitals and libraries, and building museums. She wrote memos to the Shah on a daily basis, bringing cases of injustice and mismanagement to his attention. The Shah was dreaming of Iran as a military superpower. Almost a third of the budget was spent on weapons, principally from the USA. The global oil crisis of the 1970s resulted in recession and mass unemployment in Iran. Inflation was out of control, poverty returned to the country. Land reform had not been a success and had led to people leaving the countryside. Rents were continuously increasing, and this turned the middle classes against the Shah. Many people streamed into the cities from the villages and looked for unskilled, short-term work. By 1976, almost half of the population of 34 million Iranians lived in the towns and cities. The Pehlevi dynasty was coming to an end. The decision to leave the country was inevitable. In 1979, the Iranian Revolution brought an end to the monarchy, forcing Farah Diba and her family into exile.
For many days, when I thought that we are leaving, I was thinking of my albums, really. Nothing else but my albums. And then I was talking to my friends, and they said, okay, put them in a suitcase, and if you have to leave, you take it with you, which I did. But I must tell you that really, when in those periods, when you leave your country, your belonging, your roots, your love, your everything, material thing don't have any value in that moment. And I was not a material person anyway.
Tehran Airport, January 16th, 1979. The royal couple leave Iran. The Shah continued to believe that his loyal followers, who were still bowing down before him, could stop the revolution and that his family would return to Iran at some point. The journey through exile took in the USA, Morocco, the Bahamas, Mexico, and Panama. The terminally ill Shah and his family were finally taken in by President Sadat of Egypt and lodged in a guest palace owned by the government. It was at this time that Farah Diba and Jahan Sadat became close friends. Cairo, the final resting place of the Shah. Every year on the anniversary of his death, Farah visits his grave in the Al-Rafa'i Mosque. The family comes together with exiled Iranians in a ceremony to honor the Shah and Shah. The Shah spent his final weeks at the Mahdi Hospital in Cairo. He and the Empress were personally escorted there by President Sadat and his wife. The Shah was suffering from a malignant tumor in his lymph nodes that had previously been treated in the USA. In Cairo, he had to undergo further surgery. Doctors were flown in from France and from the United States, but the Shah's condition got worse day by day. She is often recognized in the street by exiled Iranians. For them, she remains Shabanu, their empress. She often visits Bassi Cemetery in Paris, where her youngest daughter Layla is buried. Layla took her own life in London in 2001 having suffered for a long time from depression. She was never able to overcome the trauma of leaving her country at the age of 9 and losing her father, to whom she had been very close. Farah Pahlavi holds on to her truth and is thus able to find peace. She lives in the moment, even though she can never entirely escape her past. Farah Diba Pahlavi, the last Empress of Iran, left an indelible mark on her country and the world. Her tireless efforts to improve education, empower women, and promote cultural understanding continue to inspire generations to this day.